Makuta village always woke before the sun, as if the ancestors whispered to the wind and told it to rise early. At the edge of the village stood clay huts painted with earth colors, their walls holding stories older than the elders who lived inside them. Just a few steps away, new concrete houses shone under the morning light, their sharp edges cutting into the old ways like a knife pressed against soft skin. In Makuta, tradition and modern life walk side by side, never touching, always watching, like two strangers forced to share the same path. The villagers often said, "A man may close his door, but the spirits never blink." And truly Makuta believed that. Every action echoed. Every secret was carried by the wind to the ears of ancestors. Even the ground beneath one's feet was said to remember footsteps. On this particular morning, Mama Tola sat on her usual wooden stool under the mango tree near the village square. Her silver hair glowed like moonlight, and the beads around her wrists clicked softly as she moved. Children gathered near her feet, waiting for one of her stories, but she stared deep into the distance as if the world beyond the horizon whispered a warning. She murmured, gripping her staff. "The air is heavy today. Something is turning, something the earth does not like." Ao arrived in Makuta that same week, carrying her bags and her hope in equal measure. Her eyes were bright, her hands strong, and her heart eager to belong. She had married Depo, a quiet man who lived between the expectations of the past and the dreams of the future. Ao believed marriage would bring her peace. But peace in Makuta did not come so easily. As she stepped into her new home, she noticed the clay floor, the wooden stools, the old calabash bowls lined up neatly on a short shelf. Everything smelled of herbs and age. Then she saw Mama Kemi, her mother-in-law, sitting on a mat, her body bent from the stroke that had stolen her strength. Even in weakness, Mama Kemi's eyes burned with the authority of old traditions. Ao knelt respectfully. "Good afternoon, Mama. I am happy to serve this family." Mama Kemi's lips barely moved. "We shall see," she whispered. A woman's heart is known by her patience. Depo touched Ao's arm gently, trying to ease the tension, but he said nothing. He rarely did. Silence was his safest place. As the days passed, the whispers began. Villagers spoke behind woven baskets, behind cooking pots, behind water jars. She is too modern. She walks too fast. She answers without fear. She does not know how to bow deep enough. Ao would not last in that house. Ao heard every whisper. She pretended she didn't, but their words sat on her shoulders like unseen stones. Whenever she walked past the elders, their eyes followed her, not with kindness, but with caution. Her biggest struggle was Mama Kemi. The old woman expected her to know every tradition without being taught. Ao would cook, clean, fetch water, wash clothes, and still be told, "Not like that," or "You do not understand," or "In this house, we do things with respect." Sometimes Ao would sit outside at night, watching fireflies dance above the grass, and whisper to herself, "I am trying. Why is it not enough?" One evening, as she was lifting Mama Kemi from the bed to help her sit, her arms shook with exhaustion. The older woman slapped her hand weakly. "You are too rough. Are you carrying firewood or lifting your mother-in-law?" Ao clenched her jaw. She wanted to speak back, but the ancestors were said to punish disrespect, and she feared giving the village another reason to judge her. Depo stood in the doorway, torn. "Ao, try again," he said softly, avoiding his mother's eyes. Ao felt something tighten inside her chest, something sharp, something dark, something growing. Later that night, she went to the village square to breathe. Mama Tola saw her passing and called out, "Child, come sit. Your shadow looks troubled." Ao forced a smile. "I am fine, Mama." "No one lies to the wind," Mama Tola replied, "and the wind has been following you." Ao looked down. "I only want peace." The old woman tapped her staff 3 times. "Peace is not born from fire, child, and I smell fire around you." Ao froze. "Fire?" Mama Tola nodded slowly, her eyes clouding with something ancient. "Yes, the fire you hold in your hand may one day burn your own heart." Ao didn't understand the meaning, but her skin prickled as if the ancestors themselves had breathed on her neck. She bowed quickly and walked away, her heart beating fast. Behind her, Mama Tola whispered to the night, "Spirit of justice, stay near. Dark days are coming." And high above Makuta village, the wind shifted, carrying the first warning of tragedy, pride, and the fate that no one could outrun. Makuta village sat between the past and the future, like a drum caught between two beats. On one side stood the old clay huts, their walls warm and cracked from years of stories. On the other side rose the new concrete houses, sharp and proud, their glass windows shining in the morning sun. Even the wind carried two voices, one ancient, one modern. Every morning, the people walked through the village with quiet respect. They believed the ancestors walked with them, watching with unseen eyes. They said, "The dead do not sleep when justice is broken." Even the children knew that every action, whether hidden in darkness or done under the sun, echoed in the ears of the spirits. On this morning, Mama Tola, the old village elder, stood under the giant irako tree. Her voice was cracked like dried wood, but when she spoke, even the goats stopped to listen. "Makuta," she called out softly, "remember, the ancestors walk where you walk. They see your heart even when your mouth speaks sweet words." A small group gathered around her. Among them was Ao, a young woman with hopeful eyes and tired hands. She had married into the respected Kemi family only 6 moons ago. She dreamed of peace, a fresh start, a new life. But the village whispers followed her like shadows. "She is too proud," some women muttered when Ao passed by. "She does not respect the old ways," others said. Ao heard them. She always heard them. Beside her stood Depo, her husband, a quiet man, thin from worry, carrying the weight of his mother, his wife, and the village's expectations on his shoulders. His eyes never stayed in one place too long, as if afraid to choose between the past and the future. Inside the clay house, Mama Kemi sat in her wooden chair, her legs wrapped in cloth, her hands shaking slowly from the stroke that had stolen her strength. Once, she was a lioness in the village, fierce, powerful, respected. Now she depended on Ao for everything, and that dependence broke her pride a little more each day. When Ao entered the room, Mama Kemi turned her face slightly away. Ao whispered, "Mama, it is time for your herbs." Mama Kemi did not reply, only lifted her trembling hand, expecting help but refusing to show gratitude. Ao swallowed her frustration, mixing the herbs carefully. In her mind, she told herself, "I'm married for peace. I must have patience." But deep inside, a small fire of resentment flickered. Outside, the village children ran past, laughing as the afternoon sun warmed the earth. But the peaceful sound did not reach Mama Tola. Her old eyes watched Ao and Depo's home with a heaviness that came from years of seeing trouble before it arrived. She whispered under her breath, "The fire you hold in your hand may one day burn your own heart." Her words floated through the air like smoke. No form, no shape, but carrying a warning the ancestors had placed on her tongue. As the sun began to sink, a soft breeze moved through Makuta village, brushing over clay walls and concrete roofs alike. The spirits were awake. The people felt it. Something unseen was shifting. And somewhere inside Ao's heart, a place that once held hope now trembled with a feeling she could not name, a feeling that would soon change everything. Makuta village lay quiet under the early morning sun, a place where the past and the present stood face to face like two stubborn elders refusing to move aside. On one hill stood rows of old clay huts, their brown walls cracked like ancient skin, holding memories of generations. On the other side rose freshly built concrete houses with straight lines, metal doors, and shiny roofs that caught the light like sharp blades. People said Makuta was a village walking on 2 legs, one in tradition, one in ambition, and neither leg wanted to move at the same pace. Roosters crowed while the wind carried the smell of burning wood and wet earth. Women swept their compounds, creating circles in the dust the way their mothers had done. Yet behind them were solar panels and water tanks, reminders that times were changing faster than some hearts could accept. In Makuta, every man, woman, and child knew one truth. The ancestors watched. They were the silent visitors of every home, moving like shadows in the night, listening to whispers, reading the secrets kept behind closed doors. The elders often said, "A lie may hide from human eyes, but it cannot hide from the spirits." Another saying carried even greater weight. The spirits forget nothing. They hold memories longer than mountains. Mama Tola, the village elder, carried these words like fire in her chest. She walked slowly through the village with her carved walking stick, the symbols on it glowing faintly in the sun. Children greeted her with bowed heads, and even adults stepped aside out of respect or fear. She paused near Ao's home, pressing her hand against her chest as if feeling something heavy in the wind. Inside the house, Ao bent over the cooking pot, stirring herbs gently. She was a hard-working young woman whose dreams were bright, yet her days were full of burdens she did not choose. Ever since she married into the Kemi family, her life had become a road of expectations, judgment, and silent battles. Mama Kemi, her mother-in-law, sat on a wooden stool behind her, wrapped in cloth, her legs stiff from the stroke that had weakened her once strong body. Her voice was sharp, but her breath was shaky. "Ao," she murmured, "you are putting too much water. That is not how I prepared this medicine." Ao swallowed her irritation. "Mama, this is how the doctor said." "The doctor?" Mama Kemi hissed. "Since when does a Kemi woman follow the doctor instead of the ancestors' ways?" Ao lowered her eyes. The pot boiled softly, but the anger in the room was louder. Outside, Depo stood by the doorway, unsure whether to enter or flee. His face carried the weight of two worlds, his mother's traditions and his wife's modern ways. He rubbed his forehead and whispered to himself, "Let peace stay in this home, even for one day." The village children ran past, laughing, but the sound did not reach the heaviness inside the house. As Ao lifted the pot, her hands shook slightly, not from the weight, but from the growing fire in her chest, a fire made of frustration, exhaustion, and unspoken pain. Mama Tola, still standing outside, seemed to sense the tension without seeing it. Her eyes narrowed, and she whispered into the air, her voice trembling, "The fire you hold in your hand may one day burn your own heart. Spirits of the ancestors, keep your eyes open. Something is stirring." In Makuta, people believe that even a small act, a harsh word, a hidden anger, a selfish choice, echoed into the world of spirits. And those echoes returned, sometimes with mercy, sometimes with punishment. A sudden breeze rustled through the clay walls and concrete roofs alike. The ancestors were listening. Somewhere inside Ao's heart, a door slowly began to close, and another, darker one, quietly opened. Ao walked into Makuta village on the morning. She became a bride, her steps careful, her eyes full of hope. The sun had just climbed above the clay rooftops, casting long shadows over the narrow paths. Women paused their sweeping, men stopped pounding yam, and children ran behind her whispering, "That is the new wife, the one from the town." Her white wrapper moved gently in the breeze as she clutched the small bag containing her mother's blessings. Her heart beat fast, but not from fear. She believed she was walking into a life of peace, respect, and new beginnings. As she entered the Kemi compound, she felt the weight of many eyes. The compound was large, a mix of old and new, half clay walls, half concrete, as if the family itself was unsure which world it belonged to. Ao inhaled deeply, whispering to herself, "Let this be a home where I am loved." Mama Kemi sat outside under the mango tree, wrapped in a patterned cloth. Her hands rested on her lap, trembling slightly from the stroke that weakened her body a year before. Though her body had failed her, her voice still carried the strength of the old ways. Her sharp eyes scanned Ao from head to toe. "So, this is a girl my son has brought home," she said, her tone flat like a stone on the ground. Ao knelt respectfully. "Mama, I greet you. I come with peace." Mama Kemi raised her chin. Peace is easy to say, harder to keep. Depo stepped forward quickly, trying to mask the tension. "Mama, please," she is tired from the journey. But Mama Kemi waved him off. Her gaze never left Ao. "We will see if she is a wife who honors this family or a woman who brings trouble." Ao felt something cold touch her heart, but she kept her smile small and respectful. "I will do my best, Mama." Inside, the compound buzzed with whispers. She dresses like a city woman. Will she follow our customs? She looks proud, maybe too proud. Still, Ao held on to her dream of belonging. She cooked her first meal for the family, choosing traditional spices, moving carefully so she would not make a mistake. She cleaned the compound even though her body ached from travel. She greeted every neighbor with wide, respectful smiles. But even as she worked, she could feel Mama Kemi's eyes following her, judging every move, every breath, every slight hesitation. Later that evening, when Ao brought water to Mama Kemi, she bowed again. "Mama, is the water warm enough?" Mama Kemi sniffed. "It is too warm. Do you not know how to test water with your wrist? Or is that not taught in the city?" Ao stiffened but kept her voice calm. "I will make it right." Dapo watched from a distance, his face tight with worry. He knew the old ways lived deep inside his mother, and the new ways lived deep inside his wife. He feared the day those two worlds would clash like thunder and dry wood. That night, after everyone slept, Ao stepped outside to breathe. The moon glowed bright, bathing the compound in soft silver light. An owl hooted from a nearby tree, its voice echoing through the silent village. Mama Tola, the village elder, appeared from the shadows, as if the earth itself had brought her forth. She leaned on her carved staff, her eyes glowing with ancient understanding. "My daughter," she said softly, "you have entered a house where the old and the new are fighting for space. You must walk with care." Ao bowed. "Mama Tola, I want peace. I want to be accepted." Mama Tola's voice lowered, thick with warning. "Peace does not come only from good intentions. It comes from patience, wisdom, and humility. But I see fire in your heart. Be careful. Fire can warm a home, or burn it down." Ao swallowed hard. "Mama, I am not a woman of fire." The old woman shook her head slowly. "Every woman carries fire. The question is how she uses it." A cold breeze swept through the yard, making Ao's skin rise with goosebumps. She felt as though invisible eyes were watching, eyes from another world, older and quieter than the living. Mama Tola stepped even closer, her voice now barely a whisper. "In this village, every step you take echoes in the land of the ancestors. They watch, they judge, they remember." Ao looked toward the house where her new family slept. She wanted to believe she would fit in. She wanted to believe she could win Mama Kemi's heart. She wanted to believe her dreams would survive. But deep inside, something flickered, a spark, small but alive. And somewhere in the darkness of Makuta village, something else flickered with it. Mama Kemi sat in the center of the compound like a tree that refused to fall, even after a storm had broken half its branches. Though her body had weakened and one side of her face drooped slightly, her spirit still stood tall. Anyone who looked into her eyes could see she was once a woman whose voice could silence a whole gathering, whose footsteps carried respect, and whose decisions shaped the family's destiny. Her wheelchair rested under the shade of the old mango tree. The tree itself was older than many families in Makuta village, and people believed that spirits of ancestors gathered under its branches. The wind rustled its leaves, as if whispering secrets only Mama Kemi could understand. That morning, Ao approached with a bowl of warm porridge. She tried to steady her hands, but a little tremble betrayed her nervousness. "Good morning, Mama," she said softly. "Your food is ready." Mama Kemi didn't look up. Her voice came out slow, heavy, and sharp. "Did I ask for porridge? Yesterday you brought yam. Today you bring porridge. Are you trying to confuse me?" Ao lowered her head. "I only want to give you something soft, something easy to swallow." Mama Kemi lifted her chin with effort. Her eyes narrowed. "Soft?" she repeated. "Do I look like a child that needs soft food?" Ao opened her mouth to answer, but the stiffness in Mama Kemi's expression told her to stay silent. The older woman's hand trembled as she reached for the bowl, and for a moment Ao stepped forward to help. Mama Kemi's voice rose like a whip. "Don't touch me. I can still lift a spoon on my own." The whole compound grew quiet. Even the chickens stopped scratching the dirt. Ao stepped back quickly, swallowing the hurt rising in her chest. She had heard the whispers around the village. Mama Kemi used to be a lioness, They said, Ao will never be strong enough to stand beside her shadow. As Mama Kemi ate slowly, Ao watched her in silence. She remembered how people described the older woman before the stroke, how she led women's meetings, settled quarrels, and stood firm in the face of injustice. Even now, sitting half paralyzed, she carried that same authority. It clung to her like an old cloak. Dapo came out from the house, wiping sweat from his forehead after working in the backyard. He paused when he saw the tension hanging in the air. Ao, he said gently, you've been up since dawn. Sit for a moment. But Mama Kemi snorted. Sit? She wants to sit? A new wife who cannot even serve food properly wants to rest already. Dapo sighed. Mama, don't mama me, she snapped. Your father married me when I was younger than this girl. I worked from sunrise until the stars came out. I carried water, cooked for the whole family, raised children, and still had strength to welcome visitors. And look at her, tired from porridge. Ao bit the inside of her cheek. Trying not to cry, she whispered, I'm only trying to learn, Mama. Mama Kemi turned her head slowly, the weakness in her neck forcing her to move in small steps. Her eyes locked onto Ao's, piercing and unforgiving. If you want to learn, then listen, she said. Tradition does not bend for you. You bend for tradition. Ao felt something twist inside her chest, a mix of frustration, fear, and rising resentment. But she forced herself to nod. Yes, Mama. The wind blew harder, rustling the mango leaves above them. Ao shivered as a single leaf drifted down, landing on Mama Kemi's shoulder. The old woman closed her eyes, almost as though she were hearing a voice from far away. Your ancestors are watching, she muttered faintly. Ao frowned. Mama? Mama Kemi opened her eyes again. They were softer now, but still clouded with shadow of pain. Do not think this disability makes me blind. I see things. I feel things. The spirits do not turn away from a woman just because her body has betrayed her. Ao felt her heart skip. There was something haunting in Mama Kemi's tone, something ancient, as if her weakened body had pushed her closer to the spirit world. Every action you take in this house, Mama Kemi continued, will be seen. Every word you speak will echo. Whether you show kindness or anger, the ancestors will remember. Ao lowered her gaze. I will try to do what is right. But Mama Kemi shook her head. Trying is not enough. My daughter, only your true heart will show itself. And when it does, nothing will hide it. Dapo shifted uneasily, sensing the weight of her words. Mama, she is new here. Please give her time. Mama Kemi didn't answer her son. She simply wheeled herself back under the shade, each movement slow and heavy. Ao watched her, feeling the sting of invisible wounds. She wanted to help. She wanted to be accepted. But in Mama Kemi's presence, she felt like a child again, small, clumsy, judged. Above them, the mango tree swayed, its old branches creaking like an elder whispering secrets. And Ao felt it, a strange tightening in her chest. A spark of something she did not want to name. A seed of resentment. Quiet, hidden, but growing. The sun rose slowly over Makuta village, casting long golden lines across the red earth. The village was a place where the past and the future walked together like two old friends who sometimes argued but never left each other's side. Clay huts stood beside tall concrete houses, and smoke from cooking fires curled around satellite dishes and metal roofs. Children ran barefoot through dusty paths, their laughter mixing with the morning songs of birds perched on mango trees. The people of Makuta always said, the earth remembers the footsteps of those who walk on it. They believed that the ancestors watched from the shadows of the Irako trees, seeing every truth people tried to hide. In this village, no secret stayed buried, and no injustice escaped the eyes of the spirits. Ao stepped into this world with hope beating fast in her chest. She was a young woman with steady hands and a determined gaze, the kind of woman who woke before dawn and worked until the stars returned. When she married into Dapo's family, she believed she had found peace, a home where her strength would be valued. But from her very first day, whispers followed her like stubborn smoke. She walks too fast, some women murmured. Her ideas are too modern, others said. And look how she speaks, like someone who does not know how to bow. Ao pretended not to hear, but their words sat on her heart like stones. Inside the family compound, Mama Kemi sat in her wooden chair near the doorway, watching everything with sharp, tired eyes. Her body had weakened after a stroke, leaving her arms stiff and her step slow. But her voice still carried the weight of tradition. She had once been a woman feared and respected, someone who decided how things were done and whose words shaped the rhythm of the household. Even now, though life had humbled her body, the old fire inside her remained. Ao bent to greet her one morning, placing a bowl of warm porridge near her. "Mama, your food is ready," she said softly. Mama Kemi's lips tightened. In our days, a bride knelt when she greeted her elders. Ao held her breath. "Mama, I can kneel if you wish." But Mama Kemi only turned her face away. A woman should not do things because she is told. She should do them because respect lives in her bones. The words stung, but Ao swallowed them like bitter herbs. She lifted the spoon and gently fed Mama Kemi, her hand steady even as frustration burned in her chest. Depo walked in just then, quiet as always, his eyes heavy with the burden of two worlds pulling him in different directions. He placed a hand on his mother's shoulder, then looked at Ao with a tired smile. "Ao, thank you for helping Mama," he said, his voice low. She looked up at him, hurt hiding behind her eyes. "She is your mother. It is my duty." Mama Kemi gave a small snort. Duty without heart is like food without salt. Depo stood still, caught between them like a tree bending in two winds. He wanted to defend his wife, but he feared hurting the mother who had raised him with iron and love. Every day he felt himself stretching thinner, trying to honor both women who shaped his world. That evening, as the sky blazed with orange and purple Mama Tola, the village elder with eyes that saw more than they should, walked past the compound. She paused and watched the family silently. Then she tapped her wooden staff on the ground and said in a steady, warning voice, "The fire you hold in your hand may one day burn your own heart." Ao froze. Mama Kemi glanced away. Depo felt a shiver run through him. Mama Tola continued, "When pride meets anger, the ancestors stop watching and start judging." With that, she walked on, leaving the family in a thick silence that felt heavier than the evening air. Ao looked at Depo, searching his face for comfort. "Is this how it will always be?" she whispered. Depo stepped closer, touching her hand gently. "I am trying, Ao. I am trying to balance both sides." "But I am the one carrying the weight," she replied, her voice cracking. He sighed. "Give me time. Give Mama time, too." Ao nodded, but in her heart, something small and sharp twisted. The path she had entered was not the peaceful one she imagined. Instead, it was a road filled with shadows, old wounds, and silent battles. As the first evening star appeared above Makuta village, a soft wind swept through the compound. The ancestors were watching, whispering among themselves, waiting to see which fire would rise and which heart would burn. The morning sun spread across Makuta village like warm honey, touching every rooftop, every clay wall, every concrete house that stood proudly beside the old ones. The village looked peaceful from afar, but those who lived inside it knew that Makuta breathed with old stories, heavy truths, and the watchful eyes of ancestors who never slept. In this place, people believed that the spirits of those who came before still walked among the living. They whispered through rustling leaves, they watched through flickering lamps at night, and they punished wrongs that humans try to hide. The elders often said, "A hand that steals in darkness will still be seen when the sun rises." And the villagers lived with this truth carved deep in their hearts. On this quiet morning, Mama Tola moved slowly along the dusty road, leaning on her carved wooden staff. She was old, so old that people joked she remembered the first tree planted in Makuta, but her mind was sharp like a spear. Her eyes held both kindness and warning, and her voice carried the weight of stories older than the village itself. Children paused their play as she passed. Women greeting the day fell silent for a heartbeat. Even the wind seemed to bend around her, listening. Mama Kemi, seated near the square in her wheel wooden chair, looked away. She hated when the chief spoke of justice. It reminded her of things she had not confessed, mistakes buried deep beneath pride. Depo swallowed hard, glancing between his mother and wife. He looked like a man caught between fire and water, unsure which one would swallow him first. Chief Kamau walked closer to the people, his voice strengthening. Makuta is changing. New homes rise beside old ones. Young minds challenge ancient ways. But hear me, it is not change that destroys a family, no. He paused. It is a stubborn heart that refuses truth. Mama Tola clapped softly. Ah, yes, the stubborn heart. The spirits fear it more than they fear the lion. Ao blinked, fighting the sting in her eyes. Was she becoming stubborn? Or was she simply tired of being treated like she did not belong? Chief Kamau's gaze finally met hers. It was calm, serious, almost piercing. Young woman, he said gently, do not let anger guide your steps. Even the smallest spark can burn an entire field. Ao lowered her head. Yes, Chief. Mama Kemi's lips tightened, but she said nothing. The chief looked at Depo next. And you carry the weight of two worlds. If you do not learn to stand firm, both sides will crush you. Depo's voice trembled. I hear you, Chief. Chief Kamau nodded once, deeply. Good. Let wisdom enter your homes before trouble does. Then he turned away, leaving behind heavy silence and hearts full of questions. As he walked back to his compound, Mama Tola whispered to herself, Justice has spoken today. Those who pretend not to hear will cry later. Ao stood frozen, her water pot trembling slightly on her head. Depo gently reached out to steady it. Mama Kemi looked toward the dusty road where the chief disappeared, worry flickering across her face like a shadow. Something had shifted in Makuta, something the ancestors had already seen and were waiting to judge. And though the sun continued to shine, the air felt thicker, heavier, as if a storm was gathering just beyond the hills. The sun rose gently over Makuta village, spreading gold across the land like a blessing from the ancestors. In this village, the past and the present lived together like two stubborn goats tied to the same rope. On one side stood clay huts, their walls shaped by the hands of great-grandfathers. On the other side stood concrete houses with shiny zinc roofs, built by sons who had walked the city roads and tasted modern dreams. Makuta was a place where a man could greet the morning with a cell phone in his right hand and a calabash of palm wine in his left. Children chased each other through dusty paths, passing shrines decorated with cowries and colorful beads. At the center of the village stood the Irako tree, tall, ancient, and silent, believed to hold the whispers of the ancestors. People in Makuta always said, the dead do not die, they watch. Every action, whether done in light or in shadow, carried an echo, and the ancestors, those unseen judges, listened for that echo, waiting to reward truth and punish hidden evil. Even the breeze carried warnings, brushing against ears not to forget the old ways. It was into this world that Ao arrived as a new bride. She was a hard-working young woman, known for her sharp mind and steady hands. She dreamed of peace in her husband's home, a place where she could build a future. But peace was like smoke, easy to see, hard to hold. Her husband, Depo, walked beside her with quiet steps. He was a man pulled between two worlds, the tradition of his mother and the modern life he secretly desired. His silence often felt like a locked door without a key. Inside their home, sitting on a wooden chair with wheels, was Mama Kemi, Depo's mother. Once strong like the trunk of a baobab tree, she had become fragile after a stroke. Her voice was weak, but her eyes, sharp and judging, missed nothing. She believed strongly in the old customs, in respect that came through obedience, and in the idea that a new wife must bend low like a fresh branch. Ao tried. She truly tried. But each day she felt the weight of Mama Kemi's expectations pressing on her like a heavy stone. When she cooked, Mama Kemi said the spices were too modern. When she cleaned, Mama Kemi said she moved too fast, like a city girl with no patience. And when Ao cared for her, lifting her, bathing her, feeding her, Mama Kemi would look away as if the touch of a modern woman made her weaker. The village began to whisper, she is too proud. She will not bow to old customs. She wants to change the household. These words flew around like vultures searching for a carcass. One evening, As the orange sun melted behind the hills, Mama Tola, the village elder, walked slowly past Ao's compound. Her voice, rough like a drum surface, drifted into the air. "Ao," she said without looking up, "the fire you hold in your hand may one day burn your own heart." Ao stood still. "Mama, what do you mean?" But Mama Tola only shook her head and continued walking, her staff tapping the earth in a slow, steady rhythm. Ao felt a cold shiver crawl up her spine. Far across the compound, Chief Kamal, the wealthy and respected judge of village disputes, watched these small tensions with quiet eyes. He believed strongly in justice, especially when society failed to protect the weak. Though he said nothing, he saw everything, and what he saw troubled him. Inside Ao's heart, resentment began to grow like a hidden weed. Every whisper from the villagers, every sharp stare from Mama Kemi, every silent sigh from Dapo planted one more seed. She tried to swallow her frustration, but anger is a wild creature. It scratches from the inside. And so the stage was set. The ancestors watched. The villagers whispered. And the winds of Makuta carried a warning that a tragic event, born from pride, anger, and fate, was already on its way. The morning drumbeats echoed softly across Makuta village, a place where the old ways refused to die and the new ways refused to wait. Makuta stood between two worlds. On one side were clay huts shaped by hands that no longer lived but were still remembered. On the other were tall concrete houses built by sons who traveled far and returned with pockets full of modern dreams. Here, a child could run past an ancient shrine, then stop to take a photo of it with shiny new phone. The village itself breathed like a living story, half wisdom, half change. In Makuta, people believed the ancestors watched everything. They said the spirits sat in the wind, hid in the shadows, and followed every footstep. Nothing stays hidden. The elders always warned. The earth remembers. The sky remembers. Even the silence remembers. Every action, good or bad, sent an echo into the spiritual world, and those echoes always returned. It was into this world that Ao came as a bride. She stepped into Dapo's family compound with hope, hidden inside her like treasure no one could steal. She wanted peace. She wanted a fresh beginning. She wanted to belong. But Makuta knew how to test a woman's heart. Ao's husband Dapo was a quiet man, the type whose thoughts stayed locked behind his calm eyes. He lived torn between two forces, the old ways of his mother and the modern world he wished to embrace. His silence often left Ao feeling alone, even when he sat beside her. And then there was Mama Kemi, Dapo's mother. Once fierce, proud, and strong, she now sat in a chair with wheels after stroke struck her down. Though her body weakened, her spirit remained sharp like a blade. She was the living voice of tradition. To her, a new wife must respect every rule, every custom, every whisper of the ancestors. From the first day, tension lived between Ao and Mama Kemi, like a restless spirit. Ao would cook, and Mama Kemi would say, too much pepper. You cook like someone raised in the city. Ao would sweep, and Mama Kemi would add, slow down, girl. A proper wife does not rush. Your hands move too fast to carry wisdom. When Ao bent to wash her mother-in-law's feet, Mama Kemi looked away and murmured, "These modern girls think care is the same as respect." Each comment cut Ao quietly, and though her face stayed calm, her heart slowly filled with smoke. Village whispers helped the fire grow. Ao is too proud. She insults tradition. She is not like the wives we know. People spoke these words behind her back, but in Makuta, whispers traveled like wind. They always reached the ears they were meant to hurt. By evening, the sky turned dark orange, heavy with the weight of unspoken things. That was when Mama Tola, the village elder, passed by the compound. Her steps were slow, guided by the old wooden staff. She called Ojuoran the Eye of Heaven. Her gray hair blew gently, and her eyes held the wisdom of 1,000 stories. "Ao," she called, without raising her voice. Ao stepped forward. "Mama, I greet you." Mama Tola looked at her long and deep, as if reading her spirit. "My child," she said, "the fire you hold in your hand may one day burn your own heart." Ao's smile faded. Mama, what fire? Not all flames come from wood, Mama Tola whispered. Some grow from anger, some grow from pride, and some, child, grow from wounds we pretend not to feel. Before Ao could speak again, the old woman walked away, her staff tapping the earth like a warning drum. That night, Ao lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She heard Mama Kemi coughing in the next room. She heard Dapo turning in his sleep. She heard the wind stirring the leaves of the Irako tree as if the ancestors themselves were whispering in the dark. Inside her heart, resentment stretched like a shadow, slow, quiet, and dangerous. The village watched, the spirits listened, and Makuta, a place where nothing stayed buried for long, prepared for the tragedy that would soon begin to unfold. Makuta village stood like a drumbeat between the past and the future. On one side of the dusty path were old clay homes shaped by ancestors whose names were still whispered during evening prayers. On the other side rose tall concrete houses built by young men who returned from the city with new dreams and loud ambitions. In Makuta, every sunrise brought two worlds together, the world of yesterday and the world rushing like a strong wind. And yet, the people believed one thing with their whole hearts: the ancestors never sleep. They watch from the wind, from the trees, from the silence. Every action echoed, whether done in light or hidden in darkness. It is better to lose a coin than to lose your truth, the elders often said, for the spirits see what humans hide. Into this world came Ao, a beautiful and hard-working woman whose eyes carried both hope and quiet fire. She married Dapo, a man known for his calm nature. Some said Dapo spoke only when the earth itself asked him a question. He lived gently, caught between his mother's traditions and the modern world he wished to understand. But Ao's real test began inside her new home with Mama Kemi. Mama Kemi, once a strong matriarch whose voice could stop an argument from across the village, now sat in a wheelchair after the stroke that weakened her body but not her spirit. Her eyes still held the power of the old days. She believed in rules. She believed in customs. And she believed a wife must be shaped by tradition, not by her own desires. From the first week, the village whispered, Ao is too modern. She speaks her mind too much. She walks like a woman who does not fear the ancestors. These whispers followed Ao like shadows she could not shake off. Each day, Ao woke before dawn to care for Mama Kemi, lifting her gently, helping her wash, preparing her food, cleaning her room, and waiting patiently when the old woman grew angry over little things. And Ao, Mama Kemi would say sharply, why do you move like a storm? A proper wife moves with calm spirit. But Mama, Ao would reply softly, I am only trying to help. Trying is not doing, Mama Kemi snapped. You young girls want to run before you learn to crawl. Dapo watched helplessly, torn by his love for both women. One evening, Ao entered Mama Kemi's room with a bowl of warm soup. The old woman stared at the bowl, then at Ao. This soup smells wrong, she muttered. I used your recipe, Mama. Ao said, Your hands do not listen, Mama Kemi replied coldly. They only follow your pride. Ao froze. The village wind seemed to stop for a moment. She swallowed her anger like bitter medicine and lifted the spoon again. But inside her heart, something began to shift. A heaviness, a heat, a silent resentment. Her days were filled with work, her nights with exhaustion, and her spirit with questions that had no resting place. One afternoon, as Ao washed Mama Kemi's clothes outside, Mama Tola, the village elder, approached slowly. She leaned on her staff, carved with symbols of the ancestors. My daughter, Mama Tola said, your hands are busy, but your heart is loud today. Ao looked down. Mama, I am only doing my duty. Mama Tola's eyes narrowed gently. Duty without peace becomes poison. The fire you hold in your hand. Ao, it may one day burn your own heart. Ao felt her breath catch. But, Mama, what fire? Anger that is not spoken, the old woman whispered. Pain that is not shared. Pride that refuses to kneel. The ancestors see when a heart becomes heavy. Before Ao could reply, Mama Tola turned and walked away, her staff tapping the ground like a slow warning drumbeat. That night, Ao sat alone, watching the dim lantern flame dance on the wall. She could hear Mama Kemi calling her from the next room. She could hear Depo's soft breathing as he slept. But inside her, the flame danced too, small, quiet, and dangerous. Makuta village breathed with secrets. The ancestors listened, and the first seeds of tragedy settled into the soil of Ao's heart. Makuta village sat quietly beneath the red evening sky, the air filled with the sound of distant drums and the rustle of palm leaves whispering old secrets. Clay huts stood proudly like the bones of ancient ancestors, while new concrete houses rose beside them like stubborn seedlings trying to reach the sun. In Makuta, tradition and modern life did not fight. They watched each other carefully, like two lions circling the same watering hole. Every child in the village grew up knowing one truth. The ancestors see everything. They see the kindness you hide. They see the anger you swallow. And they see the sins you think are buried. It is the echo of our actions that shapes our destiny. The elders said, "A deed done in darkness will walk in daylight someday." Ao entered this world with excitement wrapped around her heart. She had married into a respected family, hoping for peace and a fresh beginning. Her husband, Depo, was quiet and gentle, a man whose eyes carried both love and worry. But her biggest challenge became the woman who watched her from the shadows, Mama Kemi. Once strong as a baobab tree and known for her wisdom, Mama Kemi now sat in a wheelchair. The stroke had taken her strength, but not her sharp mind or her unbendable beliefs. She loved tradition like a mother loves her first child. And Ao, young, modern, and independent, did not fit into the mold Mama Kemi believed a wife should follow. From the moment Ao arrived, the village whispers grew. That girl is proud. She does not bend. She does not kneel. She is too modern to understand our ways. And little by little, Ao felt the weight of those whispers pressing on her chest. She became the full-time caretaker of Mama Kemi, lifting her, bathing her, cooking for her, cleaning her, and enduring endless criticism. One afternoon, the sun hung low like a tired lantern. Ao walked into the courtyard, carrying freshly washed clothes. Her arms ached, her back burned, and her heart felt like a pot heating slowly on the fire. As she spread the clothes on the line, she heard the slow taps of a carved wooden staff. Mama Tola approached. She was the oldest elder in Makuta, with skin carved by time and eyes sharp enough to see the truth behind lies. Her staff, covered with ancient symbols, clicked against the ground like a warning drum. Ao bowed slightly. "Mama Tola, good afternoon." Mama Tola didn't smile. She studied Ao, her gaze heavy like a shadow. "My daughter," she said softly, "your hands work hard, but your spirit cries silently. Why do you hide it?" Ao looked away. "Mama, I only want peace. I do my duty." Mama Tola's voice lowered into a deep, slow whisper. "Duty without heart becomes a cage. I can feel the heat inside you." Ao blinked. "Heat?" "Yes," Mama Tola said, her eyes narrowing. "A fire is growing. A fire you hold but pretend not to feel. A fire that can warm a house or burn it down." Ao felt her throat tighten. "Mama, I do not understand." Mama Tola leaned closer, her breath carrying the scent of herbs. "Listen well, Ao, for the ancestors speak through me tonight." She raised her staff, letting the carved symbols catch the last glow of daylight. "The fire you hold in your hand may one day burn your own heart." Ao stepped back slightly, a shiver crawling up her spine. "Mama, what fire?" "The fire of anger you hide," Mama Tola replied. "The fire of pride you refuse to surrender. The fire of pain you bury under your smile." Ao swallowed hard. "But I try to be patient. I try to be strong." Mama Tola shook her head slowly. "Even a pot that holds boiling water must release steam, or it will explode. The ancestors warn you. Something heavy is coming. Something born from silence, from hurt, and from the flames of your own heart." The staff tapped the ground 3 times, slow, sharp, final. Then Mama Tola turned and began to walk away. But before she disappeared down the village path, she called out, "Beware, Ao. The spirits have seen the ending you cannot see. Guard your heart, or the fire will choose its own direction. Ao stood frozen, the clothes forgotten in her hands. The air felt colder, her breath felt heavier, and her heart, once steady, now trembled like a drumskin touched by an unseen hand. She whispered to herself, "What ending? What fire? Why me?" But the ancestors did not answer. Only the wind moved, carrying Mama Tola's prophecy through Makuta like a quiet warning of tragedy yet to come.